I'm here with Trevor Coley of Sontronics. Trevor,
Hey,
thank you for stopping by.
my pleasure.
And we wanted to have Trevor on today specifically because he has a new product on. I shouldn't say specifically because I've known Trevor for a while, and I really admire his passion behind what he does, and especially his products. His products are one of a kind, hand built in the UK, right?
Indeed, yep.
And just really special. And I've fallen in love with some of his products, and I use them myself. So, uh, Trevor, tell us a little bit about how you got into the microphone.
Well, it was a long journey, to be honest. I've been involved in music all my life, really. Music was the background to my waking up on a weekend. None of my parents were musicians, but music was always playing in our household. There was an awful lot of country music, curiously enough. Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Don Williams,
Wow.
John Denver, and then that was all my mum's side. And on my dad's side, you'd probably have the Beatles. Mum was Rolling Stones. Sounds like a V8 roaring up somewhere out there. Hopefully the mic picks that up.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. But yeah, that was the sort of the soundtrack to my youth. And at the age of around 6 and 7, my parents had this reel-to-reel tape machine. It was just a 2-track stereo recorder of the day. That was your way of doing a podcast back in the early 70s. And this was something that my parents let me use. And it was incredible, really. It was such an amazingly mechanical device. I would not put a young child anywhere near that these days because of all the moving parts and goodness knows what. But you know what? That's what we did in the 70s. So basically, I sat there with this little tiny cast microphone with a coiled lead plugged into this tape recorder, recording the hits off the radio at the age of 7, and I would sing along, essentially.
Play them back.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the nicest things that happened to me very recently is my parents found this old tape machine in their attic and passed it over to me. So we're talking 42 years later.
Wow.
And there it is, and I'm on one of these tapes, babbling away
you
somewhere.
found
So
the
yeah,
tapes.
I've got this in my studio now in the UK. So
Wow.
yeah, that was the beginning. So music was in my soul essentially. And as time went on, I taught myself to play guitar at the age of 12. I was really influenced by watching the Monkees on TV. American TV was really big in the UK back then, and we only had a couple of TV channels to watch. So every Saturday morning I'd be up 9 a.m. The Monkees would come on, and wow, Mike Nesmith playing this fantastic Rickenbacker or Gretsch 12-string. And what I found was that I got really attuned to harmony. Harmony in voices, harmony in music everywhere, and just balance. And it just kind of underpinned me as a person. I like geometry. I like things being regular as such. I love Art Deco. I'm really into that sort of geometric styling. So I sort of found that over time my personality was sort of governed and drawn towards things that are balanced and geometric and in harmony, and friendships and people and whatever else, and music particularly. So as time went on, played guitar. My dad was into the Everly Brothers, another harmony thing going on there. So all of this stuff was around me. Joined a band, and I was working in a music store, as a guitar store, as a Saturday boy. And I started earning a bit of money. And it seems I was the only guy in the band that was earning any money. I ended up buying the equipment, essentially. Tape recorder, just a small mixing console. And so became, by default, a studio engineer, I suppose. Nothing serious, but I learned how to use EQ and mixing controls and balance a small mix of a small band. One thing that really frustrated me was when I was playing guitar, I got to a kind of reasonable standard. My buddy and I, we basically learned to play Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, like through and through. Not as good as Slash, but
Pretty close.
pretty darn close. And we were really proud of that. And the one thing that really frustrated me was when we listened to the playback, the tone that was being picked up by my mic at the time, which happened to be just a handheld dynamic mic, which was all we had.
Yeah.
the tone of the playback was absolutely nowhere near the tone that was coming out of the amplifier, and it just gave me the blues all the time. Every time I listened to it, it was, goodness me, this is something wrong. And you couldn't EQ it, because if you tried to boost an EQ somewhere or cut one somewhere else, it had an influence on other frequencies that, in that term, we were just talking about tone. We didn't understand EQ and multi-band frequency, but it sounded wrong ultimately. So as time went on, I ended up, sort of long story short, but I worked my way through a recording studio, ended up selling equipment, high-end equipment, when the digital revolution came in. So this was back in '92. The ADAT first came out around then, and the world went crazy. And I started getting really heavily involved in that sort of selling side of retail, pro audio at the time, real pro audio. And it was just a passion for me. It was everything. And as time went on, I got exposed to more and more microphones. Other brands came along into the world, and I started hearing qualities of sound that I'd never heard before. I got introduced to my first condenser microphone when I was working at this store, and it was like someone opened the shades. Suddenly I'm hearing colours that I could hear when I'm playing it, that I could never hear before when I was reproducing or replaying it from tape. So it became very obvious to me that a microphone is such an important tool. And whether it's live sound or whether it's recorded sound and reproduction, the microphone is fundamental. It's the gateway for the sound. So time went on. I worked my career through retail, became general manager of music stores, and then went off to join Soundcraft, the mixing console company in London. Became a national sales manager for them, and then an international sales manager, and started learning a little bit about international business and seeing how manufacturing is done, and learned a lot from that. And I recognized that at one point towards the end of my tenure at Soundcraft, they started moving some manufacturing offshore from London to China, to Asia, and in a bid to essentially increase profits and streamline production, because production was going crazy for those guys, and they needed to increase it, and there was no possibility to do that in the UK. And I saw what was possible. I saw the fact that they'd taken products over to Asia, and project managed it, and the products that were coming back over were just absolutely spot on. And because it was managed, I've seen so many horror stories where products go out, let's take it to China, let's get it made cheaper, just send them the drawings, and things come back, and oh my goodness me, it's a disaster. So that was a kind of inspiration to me. I got involved with bringing another microphone brand in from Asia to pioneer that, to see if it worked, and it worked pretty well. But what I found was, although the price point was ideal, it grabbed people's attention on price, there were some fundamental flaws in the construction, in the electronics design, in the physical design. And many of these products, as we all know these days, we call it OEM, original equipment manufacturer. And that is simply a case of somebody makes something and offers it for sale to anyone who wants to put their name on it. And so there's no extra development, no research and development put in. The product just goes to market, and it's painted a certain color, and someone else puts their name on exactly the same product and calls it a brand. So this is for me, was a no-no. But it gave me inspiration to create a brand which was perfected, which was refined, which had none of this high frequency sort of hissy, sibilant replay that you get from so many of those products coming over from Asia. And that's not to say that they're all bad, but so many of them were, and so many of them continue to be. And there are fundamental reasons. I guess we won't go into the deeper details right now, but if anyone wants to know those, then you can just send me an email, trevor@sontronics.com, and I will very happily engage and explain to you. In fact, you can go to Sontronics' website and find the information yourself there. I think there's some thunder that's just come from one of the huge speaker manufacturers right now.
I think that's above the, 85 decibel.
I'm certainly hoping that wasn't an earthquake. But I guess the reality was, and I know it's people who know me know that I like to talk, because I'm incredibly passionate about what I do. But the fact is, in a nutshell, Sontronics, the blueprint for Sontronics was fairly straightforward. We need to reproduce audio as accurately as possible. I don't want to have to EQ the sound to make it right. An example, as a guitarist, I've got a Les Paul, I've got a Telecaster. If I pick up my Les Paul and I'm playing heavy rock, I'm picking it up because that fat mahogany sound, the tone, is lent to the type of the genre of music. If I want to play a bit of country, I'm not going to EQ my Les Paul to sound like a Telecaster.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up my Telecaster because it sounds right for the genre of music. So take that to a microphone. Why should I have to jump on the EQ to tune the sound before anything's done? It's even heard. This is one of the biggest problems. So that's what we've done. And 15 years ago, this is our 15th anniversary at the NAMM show this year. 15 years have passed, and our unique selling point is our smooth high-frequency roll-off. The fact that you don't need to use EQ. It's not necessary in any of our microphones. So any of our dynamic mics, our tube mics, our ribbon mics.
I think that's obvious right now.
Yeah. I mean, look, here we are with our new Podcast Pro microphones. So this is the very first podcast done with this microphone ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm actually quite excited myself
Yeah.
here. And this is 18 months of work and research, and it's not something we just threw together because other manufacturers make podcast mics and we must do so. This is something that actually we saw as a niche for us that we can make a really good one. And we make great microphones for recording, and major hit records have been made with our microphones, continue to be made. Major Hollywood soundtrack scores have continued to be made with our mics. But we have 3 adult teenagers at home, and they're into their YouTubers, they're into their gaming. And these days, these guys are, they're video stars, and the production values are astonishing. I mean, we've got cell phones now which are 4K. Oh my goodness, if you can put a 4K video out on a cell phone, however, where's the sound coming from? And so if we can bring the quality of sound to that market for those guys too, at a price point they can afford.
Absolutely.
This is £99, $150 approximately the list price. Then we hope is an affordable or an aspirational price for somebody. So and I hope what everyone's hearing is
it sounds
so
phenomenal.
I worked on this mic because what I wanted to do is, bearing in mind we're talking about a mic for speech.
Yes.
This is not a musician's microphone, essentially. It's not been designed for musicians. It's designed for speech. So this is a broadcast quality dynamic microphone with a pop filtering system in it. So hopefully you're not hearing lots of plosives and what have you. Additionally, we've also tuned the designing in terms of the construction and the layering of the pop filtering so that the sibilance is not there either. So between 5 and 8K, it rolls off very, very gently, but enough that it doesn't have a lot of hissing and spitting going on.
It's smooth, yet it's still there.
The presence is there, and this is the key. Once again, at the moment I'm 3 days into a show, so my voice is probably a little closer to Barry White today than it might be normally. But let's let that sounded like a World War II biplane going past. But it's the reality is that if you put a female voice here or a guy with a higher register voice, you're likely to hear a lot more T's and S's and what have you, the sort of those high sibilant notes. And this mic, it shares the same DNA with our solo handheld vocal mic and the Corona vocal mic. So the same capsule, but we've modified and created this enclosure so that it has its own character, which is the same in all of our microphones. They possess a character. So hopefully,
So does it have any rejectional properties with the filters inside? I can see with the design, it seems like there's some type of specific.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the key things with this, we're sat outside on a balcony here in California, and
maybe the loudest place.
It probably
California
is,
right now.
short of being in LAX on the runway. I guess we are probably the loudest place in California. Now, the reality is, if we imagine that we are in a podcast studio or a radio broadcast studio, and we might have 3 or 4 mics around on the desk, then the one thing you don't want is someone else's voice appearing in your microphone. So the side rejection on this microphone is astonishing. I mean, and I say that without any arrogance. And at the end of the day, it astonished me how good the side rejection is. We've worked on that. It was intentional, but it exceeded our expectations. The on-axis rejection, and what I mean by that is if I were to have a loudspeaker behind me right now, or if I were to point the microphone directly at a loudspeaker, it also has incredible rejection. You know, one can get really quite close to a loudspeaker before you hear any feedback whatsoever. So the key here is the enclosure that we've created around this capsule is absolutely perfectly suited in terms of a broadcast microphone.
I think that's great for capturing for broadcast. Obviously, I can picture that. I mean, we're here, almost along the street, and the quality sounds phenomenal. And in a closed, controlled environment, I can imagine the quality would sound.
I did. I mean, before we came out here, of course, in part of the research and development, I've got to listen to these things, and more often than not, it's my own voice, which I'm sick of hearing. Hopefully, everyone else doesn't feel quite the same way. But the reality is, I put it through a quick session in Logic and played it back through a Bluetooth speaker, just to mimic what might go on in a home environment, really. And I was absolutely blown away. I mean,
Yeah.
it has. Of course, there are no electronics inside it, or I'll explain. There are no electronics inside this. This is a straightforward dynamic microphone, so very, very simplistic in its design technologies. But the fact that it has zero self noise in that sense, there's no electricity passing through electronic components to add noise to the circuit. You have just a silent microphone, and it only responds to the incoming signal. When it stops dead. And imagine you are broadcasting from a major commercial studio. You don't want any noise. You don't want any extra stuff happening. You want the mic to be able to stay live, but it only picks up when you perform, and that's what we've got here.
I can imagine for the everyday podcaster or YouTuber or even gamer as well, um, they don't have the experience or maybe knowledge to play around with, editing software or DAWs or even, so the real focus and rejection of that microphone will help, them in those instances, or instead of like gating or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I could even hear how focused it is in this environment. So I think it's not only an amazing tool for people in environments that are controlled, but for the everyday user or YouTube
Yeah.
person or someone who just wants to start a podcast. Not only is the price point there, but the quality's there, and ultimately the sound and the focus
Oh,
is there.
thank you. I mean, this is absolutely the key. One of the most important things we've attempted to achieve with our brand is we want to help the customer. We have developed mics for specific applications, and we've studied the application, we've studied the customer's needs, and we've brought something to the party which they get out of the box. And let's face it, these days, I'm getting on a bit now, but the younger generations, they're not really that interested in how it works.
Yeah.
They just want it to work.
Yeah, and sound good.
And yeah, exactly. It's got to be usable immediately. Instant gratification. Everyone, you ask a question, or you've got a question you need answered, you jump on Google, you tap it in your phone, and you
Yeah.
read what
I
pops
think
up.
we're all that way sometimes.
And we are. We've become this way. There's obviously, I won't name the largest store in the world online, but if you want to buy something, you go on that store, and it's with you the next day, and they're working out ways to get drones to get it to you the same day.
Yeah.
No one's patient anymore, and I lament that a little bit. But at the end of the day, I can't change that, and so I have to adapt my company to the way the world works. And so you get this product out of the box, and in fact, even before you get it out of the box, on the packaging, it tells you how to plug it in, how to achieve the results you need. So if you're in a rush, you rip the packaging off, you get the mic out, you plug it in. Oh, right, there's the instructions you need, if you need them. So this is what we're about. It's about, if we call it oven ready, it's as simple as that. Plug and play, you can call it whatever you want, but it's about customer satisfaction out of the box.
Well, I love the Podcast Pro, so I appreciate you talking with us a little bit about it. Is there any one of your microphones, if you could pick one, I know that's hard for you to do, that you're, what do they say, Desert Island. What's your Desert Island microphone of Sontronics that you would recommend to somebody?
Oh, well,
No,
given
no.
our range is getting close to 30 different mics,
Oh, boy.
and having designed every one of them, so each of them is like a child. So it's you're asking
Pick
me
your
which
favorite
my
child.
favorite child, and the answer is I don't have one. But if I were to really, yeah, you've got me now. You've tied my tongue because this is not fair.
How about
Yeah.
this? If someone were to be introduced to the brand of Sontronics,
Yeah.
what would be a great microphone for them
It's
to
a great
start out with?
question. That's an easier question to answer, and I'll tell you this: it's the Apollo, the stereo ribbon microphone, and the reason for this is that every other microphone we make, let's use the analogy of guitars again. I don't like Stratocasters, but 100 million people do. I love a Les Paul. Some others may not. Okay, some may prefer a PRS. I prefer a genuine Les Paul. Dare I say genuine? Probably the wrong word, but a Gibson Les Paul, I should say. So, when it comes to all of the other mics in our range, they have. There might be something they can reference to, and they say, "Well, actually, it's not quite right for my voice, or it's not. I'm not hearing what I want to hear here, there." And because we don't emulate anyone else's microphones, we're always coming to market with our own signature sound. You know, it's a proprietary design. It's not a copy or a clone of anyone else's famous product. So we run that risk of you either love it or hate it. The Apollo is everyone's favorite friend. It just delivers. It's so, and again, I didn't invent the microphone as such, as an instrument. But I designed and developed this one, and I am so proud of it because whatever you put this on just sounds natural. And it's been living in Abbey Road studios for the last eight years now, I think it is.
That was going to be my next question. I'm sure there's some big places.
Some major artists. I mean, when you listen to the James Bond theme, Skyfall, the piano is the Apollo you're hearing. And we are so proud of that. And so many Hollywood scores that have come along in the last 8 years. I can't even begin to tell you the names, but there's so many that have happened. You look up all of the major names that have got a score that's been recorded at Abbey Road. The Apollo features on all of those. So it is just something that picks up sound in the most natural way. It's like a 3D sponge that soaks it up and just gives it back with a little silk blanket over the top, kind to your ears but true to the original sound. So that is, I have to say, one of my proudest creations.
Well, are you guys, you're releasing, is it the Apollo 2? Is that what?
Apollo 2 is out now. So yeah, Apollo 2 came around just over a year ago. Okay. So we revamped everything. We moved a lot of our manufacturing from Asia to the UK, and in fact 80% of what we make now is made in the UK. Podcast Pro made in the UK now, hand built. So what that did, that wasn't to say that what we were making in Asia was wrong. In fact, those examples I gave you with microphones that we had manufactured in Asia. But what I wanted to do was to take more careful control over manufacturing processes, just the speed of being able to do, come with an idea, and if I need to make a change on something, then I can go just round the corner rather than take a 13-hour flight over to Asia and back again. So we are now manufacturing a lot of those products there, and the quality control and the quality of sound is now just epic, if I can say so.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down with us at Namm. I know you're busy and you have a lot going on. It might be good to get some fresh air. Probably
this has been great
for you. Where can people find the Podcast Pro microphone or any other Sontronics mics?
Right now, we have had the most unbelievable show that we've ever had in our lives.
I've seen that. You guys are pretty proud of everything.
We have taken orders for these microphones from our distributors around the world in numbers that far exceeded our expectations. So what we would ask is if anyone wants to contact us at info@sontronics.com, and we will point you to your distributor and therefore often to your local dealer, depending on where you are in the world. Anywhere in the US, we will point you directly to our distributor's PAD near Boston, Massachusetts. But please come to us directly, info@sontronics.com, and we will help you out.
Well, thank you, Trevor.
Real pleasure. Thank you very much, Casey.